Hello everyone and welcome to another Houdini tutorial. Today we are going to be making something I'm all too familiar with because I see them every time I go into my backyard, a dandelion. So let's get started and create a project and save the file. Alright, now that we've created the project and saved the file, let's make the particles for our seeds. So to do that, I'm dropping down a geo node. We'll just call this emitter. Pop inside, drop down a sphere, change this to polygon. And for scales, 1 unit is 1 meter. So let's shrink this down to 0.1. That's still a little bit big, but for our purposes, it should work just fine. Now let's drop down a pop network, and that's going to put particles inside our sphere. Pop inside, and if I hit play, let's turn on real-time toggle. It's just going to create a bunch of particles in my geometry, but that's not necessarily what I want. So let's go to pop source, go to the birth tab, and right here shows how many particles to create. So right now it's saying constant birth rate, every second create 5,000 particles. But we just want one set of particles, don't create any more. So let's turn this down to 0. And our impulse activation is frames, not seconds. Constant is seconds, impulse is frames. So right now, I want to start with maybe 70 seeds. And let's keyframe this because we don't want to create 70 seeds every second. We just want to have 70 seeds to start with. So let's Alt and left click on this impulse activation at 1. Now let's go to frame 2. And change this to 0, keyframe this. So now, just 70 particles and that's it. But our particles aren't doing anything. We don't have a gravity force or anything like that influencing them. So let's change that and drop down a pop wind. Wire this in right here. And if we hit play, nothing happens because our amplitude is 0. Let's change this to something like 1. And change our wind velocity on our, let's change it on our x-axis. Let's change it 1, see what that looks like. Now our particles are flying away. That already looks pretty good. It simulates what seeds normally would do. Nothing too crazy there. I don't like how they initially go down. So let's change the wind velocity. Let's just increase the y by maybe 0.2, so then they go up a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Let's try 0.5. Yeah. All right, so that's looking pretty good. If you want to change anything else, your parameters are right here. You can change the swirl size, and you can change the roughness. You can make them a little more jerky. This kind of looks like the wind is just carrying the seeds away slowly. Let's check it out in real time, how far they get. Okay. Looking good to me. Alright, so now that we have our particles to influence the motion of our seeds, let's go ahead and make our seeds. I'll drop down a line. Let's put the template on here just so we can get a sense of how big we want our lines to be. And first thing we're going to do is change the direction to the z-axis because it plays nicer with our normals when it's set initially on the z-axis, and I'll explain normals in just a second. But just trust me, you want it to be on the z-axis for now. Just looking at this, I'm going to shrink the length a lot, very tiny. And let's give this line some depth by dropping down a poly wire. Put that in, way too fat, make it nice and skinny. Let's say 001 even. And let's add divisions to make it nice and round. Let's get in a little closer. And let's put a lot of segments. And segments are just the making edges that go across our geometry here. Let's do like 50, and you can see them all right here. So you'll notice a dandelion seed, the actual seed is near the bottom of the stick. So let's drop down a soft transform. Select our particles. Make sure you don't select any of our particles that we have to influence them, but let's just go about right there. Make sure none of our other particles are selected. Press enter, and you'll see this red, and that's what's going to be affected by the soft transform. We only want it to be near the bottom, so let's reduce this pretty drastically. About right there, and increase the scale slowly up. Just bulge this end out. Just like that. Maybe a little more. About right there. Let's lower the soft radius. Looks good. Okay, so we have the stem, but we need the little floaty parts, the little feathers. What am I trying? I don't know the name of those things. Let's add the little top parts, which the wind picks up to carry our seeds. So let's drop down something called a L system. Let's put the template there and our display here. And an L system, think of it kind of like a dead tree almost. That's what it looks like. And let's hurry and drop down a transform and line it up with our stem. Rotate this 90 degrees. And we want to shrink this a lot. Move it just a little bit. Looks good to me. Let's go back to our L system node. And let's increase the generation. So a generation is, see right here, it breaks into 3. That's one generation. And then up here, it breaks into 3 more. That's another generation. Let's bump that up to, say, 10. Right there. Then you can mess around with a couple things like the random scale, kind of just messes things up. Kind of like it where it is right now. We can change the angle of our breaks. I kind of like it down a little more. Well, let's still have them facing in a certain direction. Like, right there looks pretty good to me. You can change the step size if you want. Step size scale. Just get the right look that you're going for. That looks pretty good to me. And let's merge these two together. All right, so we have our seed. Now we want to copy a seed to every point. Let's drop down a copy to points. And let me show you what happens. Copy to target points, geometry. And see how they're all in one direction? Not what we want. So let's dive into normals. If I hit the display flag on our sphere, and I click on this tab right here called Display Normals, you'll see it's the direction that each of our points is facing. So when I click at the display flag on our PopNet, our particles don't have normals, so we need to make an attribute. Let's drop down a normal, and that's going to create an N attribute for us, and each particle has a normal now. So I'm going to uncheck our normal, look at our copy to points, and now our seeds are going the direction of the normal. It's looking pretty good. If we hit play, they all start to fly away, ready to go create more dandelions for us. Yay! More dandelions for our yard. See how they all stick in the same direction though? They're permanently in the direction of the normal. So let's add a little variation and spin to them when they finally launch. Go to our copy to points. Oh, when you go to our copy to points, make sure you hit pack an instance. That's going to make each seed its own single geometry instead of trying to compute all the L systems separately as their own different geometry. Trust me, it'll just make things run a little faster. So now let's drop down a transform, put it before the copy to points. And our frame 1, that's where we want it right now. So let's keyframe 0, 0, 0. But when we go to our frame 2, we want to animate these. Rotate the seeds a little bit. They're getting caught in the wind. So let's type in $F. And right now that's saying whatever the frame number is, that's how much I want you to rotate. So if it's frame 24, $F, rotate 24 degrees. So it's, as time goes on, our number changes, and that's a pretty good base to go by when you want to animate a simulation. So let's do $F, and then let's vary it up just a little bit more. Let's do $F times 2 there. Let's keyframe that. Let's $F times 4, let's say, on the Y. Keyframe that. $F times 3. Keyframe that. And go back to keyframe R1. Oh, looks like it changed. Let's keyframe that back to 0 on our first frame. 0. Make sure our second frame. Okay. So where we want it, and then when it changes, start rotating. And off they go. My allergies are going off just watching them already. Okay, let's save it just to be safe. And let's make our stem. Let's drop down another line. Transform that. Let's do the template on our seed so we can get a good sense of where we're going. Let's make this nice and long. Looking good. Make a polywire, give it some depth. Divisions, nice and smooth. Decrease the size just a bit, or a lot of it actually. Let's add lots of segments, like 100, because we're going to be bending this a lot. Actually, let's do 200. Looking good. Let's make the center part right here bigger. So doing a soft transform. Select our points. Right there. Press enter. Decrease the size of our soft radius. All right, and we'll increase the size right here. Make this nice and fat. Let's do a front view. Space B on the front view. Select our polygons here. And do a poly bevel. Round this out. Add some more divisions. Increase the distance. Ooh. About right there is looking good to me. Looking at this, I think I'm going to drop down another soft transform and just do the middle. Let's get the really bulbousy look. Like just these. Soft transform. Press enter. Lower the radius. Just to right there. Increase the scale again. Actually, we can increase the soft radius just a little bit. And let's just increase the X and the Z scale. Let's do maybe 5 and 5. Change their perspective. Okay, let's look nice and fat, ready to hold all our seeds. Let's see here. Bring those in just a little bit by lowering the Z on the origin. We'll have to change the transform here. Let me look at this real quick. All right, now let's just adjust this a little bit on our L system. Just wanted to bring everything in just a little more. The template there, the display there. Okay, that's looking better. So we want a wind to move our dandelion and release all of our seeds. Looking at this, we want it to bend just down that way initially. Let them all go free. So let's put down a bend. Add that. We need to change our capture origin here. So change our capture direction on our Y. Let's lower the origin. Down, down, down. Capture length, we're going to increase that. Until we bend it, this is going to fly. So we will keyframe our bend. Then we want to, let's say it stands still for a second so we can kind of get our bearings. And then at frame, like let's say 28, let's bend it. Keyframe that. And then we'll just have it shake back and forth. The wind's kind of shaking it really quickly. Then slowly moves back here. Then back here. Let's see what that looks like. Just the stem. I kind of want it to overcorrect right here. Just a little bit. Then straightens back up right here. Check it out. Okay. All right, so we have the action of our stem being blown, but our seeds fly before then, where we want our seeds to wait just a second before it gets blown over. So we're just going to warp the time a little bit with a time warp. Wire this in, hit the template there, and we want our input frame to be 1 to 240. But our output frame, we're going to skip ahead 24 seconds. So we'll do 24 to 264. Now it'll wait just a second before going right there. And you'll notice our seeds don't track with our stem. So we have to transform that just a little bit. Let's drop down and transform. Wire this in. And put the template on our bend. Let's wait till frame 24. I'm just going to keyframe our translate. And then let's look at our first action, the farthest it goes. About right on frame 28, I think. Let me click on my bend. Yeah, frame 28. So on frame 28, let's move this by the X and the Y. Right there. Keyframe that. Let's see what that looks like. Shakes yeah, okay, that looks good to me. I think we're good to apply our materials to our objects now. So let's drop down 2 nulls here. One for our stem, because that's going to be a different material. Out, stem. And our null for our seeds. Out. And let's just make a different geometry for both of those. It's good practice if you're doing different materials to give them each their own geometry. One for seed, one for our stem. Go in, drop down an object merge, and bring in this null. This is our seeds. And an object. And this is our stem. We can take off the emitter there. And let's create our material. Drag this, principal shader. So for our stem, these are normally like a brownish green. Go in here, maybe like a dark green. Well, I think I'll go more the brown. Like that color. Let's apply this. And make one for our seed. Well, let's label this stem. Seeds, they're just white, pretty simple. Seeds, white. Apply that there. Okay, let's make a light and a camera and see what this looks like. So I'm just going to drop down an environment map. Let's save this just to be safe. Apply a HDRI. Some sort of outdoorsy, very bright. Let's check out where this. We'll do a camera. Pretty close to it at first, and then we will animate the camera. So I'll hit Control and left click, and that'll create a camera where my viewport camera is right now. Go to frame 1. Let's make a quick backdrop, because I don't want this pixelated image in the background. Geo. Background. And I'll just drop down a simple grid. XY. Let's shake this far away. This still needs to be pretty big if we're going to track the seeds. We're going to move it on back, move the camera back, so it's got to cover a lot of area. But we'll just do that for now. We might have to make that bigger later. Little shader. Background. I'm going to do like a basic sky blue. Apply this to our background. I don't want this to have any quality, so I'm going to turn off the reflectiveness, the roughness, all that. Save it one more time. Let's check out the render view, see what this looks like. Shift click and render just this area. I just want to look at these seeds real quick. So our L system, our P scale on our L system is too big right now. Our P scale is the point scale, basically. So I'm going to go to my objects. Let's hop in the emitter, scroll up to our L system here, and I'm just going to do a little bit of Vex, which is the code for Houdini. It's going to be real easy. Don't worry about it. Don't be intimidated by it. Attribute wrangle here, wire this in. And we're going to affect the P scale. So at P scale equals, let's see what 0.01 looks like. And all vex is ended with a semicolon. So we're affecting the attribute P scale, point scale. Still too big. Let's try a 0.001. We just want these to be really skinny. There we go. That's looking like the cotton on the end of a dandelion. Looking at this, there's a couple bare spots. I think I'm going to add a little more particles to it, so we have a little more seeds in our pop source. Let's see what 100 looks like. Okay, that's looking better to me. That's looking more realistic. And that's just one of the cool things about Houdini is it's so procedural that you can always go back and change things without messing up your whole system. If you want to change anything, I could just go back, add more seeds, and it wasn't a big deal at all. Or I could go back and change the P scale of my seed tips, and that doesn't affect it at all. And looking at this, I think I want to make it just a little more green on our stem. Let's see what that looks like. Maybe like that. Even a little greener than that. I might make our seeds not reflective. Because right now I think it's picking up some of that green shader. It's reflecting some of that. Let's bump up the multiplier here to 3 maybe. I just want to brighten these up. Yeah, just like that. Okay, so I think we can go ahead and start animating our camera so it's tracking these seeds. Save, always save. It's always here where the system crashes and then you have to start all over. So I'm very strict about saving. Hop out of that. And let's go into our camera. Let's zoom in pretty close. Start out. Keyframe, our rotate and our translate. Wait 24 frames. Keyframe that. And let's track it out. kind of want it to just be one fluid motion. So let's go all the way up to 240. And I want it to track my camera, track my seeds. Just one big motion. I don't want to show the bottom of my stem. And keyframe that. See what this looks like. It flies up. And away they go. Okay, looks good to me. I think we can go ahead and render this out, guys. Increase our pixel samples. Let's say 10 by 10. And that's looking pretty good to me. You can adjust some of this stuff. It's going to be relatively a simple render, so I don't think you'll have to mess with too many of these parameters. Just bumping up your pixel samples, I think, will help a lot. And we are good to render. And that should be all for today, guys. If you have any questions or suggestions on simulations you'd like to see in the future, or ways that I could have done this a little bit better, please let me know, because we're all learning this together. So that should be all for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something today. I know I did. That's all for now. Bye!